Good morning. Really great to be here, and I'm humbled to be with fellow colleagues in an industry that I've given 20 years of my life to. I'm not quite sure what's going on in the room here, but we feel like I've got more people sort of sitting on the right and the left. So I'd love to do a quick poll of who here is from Victoria, my state. Yes, awesome, welcome. Who here is from New South Wales, where I was born, Port Macquarie, a beautiful town on the coast? Who is from Brizzy? Shout out. Anyone from New Zealand? Yeah, welcome, welcome. And what about Western Australia? Yeah, little woohoos. NT? Anything I've forgotten? What about South Australia? Yes, thank you so much for having us. Tassie, of course. Oh my God, a beautiful part. Hi. Okay, I'm feeling a bit more connected. And ACT, that one as well. Hi. And some Polynesians, welcome all of you. Today we are here to talk about human connection. My intention this morning is to do two things. I'm going to speak about 6 trends that are here in Australia on our doorstep right now that are impacting the workplace. And then we're going to look at 3 personas that I would invite you to take on in your business to transform the way we think about our people that we employ. Before I do that, I want to take you over here, and I'm going to kick my heels off. Imagine Nepal, vast wilderness area, 50 kilometres stretching up the Indian border. August 2001. It's the end of a really bad monsoon season. And I'm there doing that typical Aussie thing where I've spent a couple of years in London and I'm travelling through several countries on the way home. I'm there with my boyfriend at the time, Tristan, and we want to see the heart of the jungle, Chitwan National Forest, to fall in love with elephants and see endangered Bengal tigers. They've had a catastrophic season. The monsoon season has literally created landslides and mudslides, and it's running through the middle of this national park. So Tristan, he's 6'5", chef by trade, and risk-averse, cautious, clean, analytical, and very hot-tempered. And then there's Demang. Demang is 5 foot, barefoot, rucksack over his shoulder. He's my Nepalese guide, the local guide. Just going to get some water. The water in the river is highly contaminated. Demang, who speaks very little English, he says to us, please, when we go to the water, do not put your fingers in the water. Do not put your hands in the water. Like literally, I'm telling you, there was people's houses and belongings floating down the river. It was an unbelievable brown, soupy visual. So Tristan, 6'5", me, Demang, we walk down, and there is this tiny little canoe. We're about to get in this canoe. Well, I'm 20-something, young, resilient. You do these crazy things, right? So we step in the little wooden canoe, and Demang pushes off, and he starts paddling down the river. And very quickly, I realise he hasn't been out here in a long time. In fact, he's saying to us that things have changed, that he's not recognising the terrain, and the devastation has literally turned his place upside down. So that was the second warning bell for me. We get to this edge of a bank, he pulls up, and we're about to get out to touch land, thank God. And then he says, look, Miss Jaquie, fresh tiger prints there. At this point, I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? This guy, barefoot, with a rucksack over his shoulder, he hasn't even got a weapon on him. What am I doing? So the control freak in me says, Demang, seriously, what do we do if we see a tiger? No problem. If tiger come, you stay still. More than likely, it goes around you. The rhino is the deadliest animal in the jungle. This is the one you need to be careful of, Miss Jaquie. If you see rhino, run up a tree. Sure, I look at Tristan, 6'5", with loving eyes, and I say, you will boost me, won't you? And he says, not likely, love, you're on your own. Clearly he didn't last. So, Here we are, we're walking through a forest. We're there for about 90 minutes. I'm completely uninspired. In fact, I'm peaking. I'm full of so much anxiety. I'm looking for tigers, I'm looking for rhinos, and all I'm thinking about is how am I going to run up a tree? 2 hours into the walk, Tristan's got legs full of leeches, and we demand to go back to the lodge. It was a pretty traumatic experience. So the next morning at 6 a.m., we do it all again. Because we're young and resilient, right? And we've paid our money and we're going to do this. But this time we're doing a forest walk on an elephant from the elephant camp. We get to the elephant camp and we are meted by a beautiful Nepalese guy called Changu. And Changu, he again is 5 foot, barefoot, with a rucksack on his shoulder, except the difference is Changu tells us he's been on a recce that morning. He's been on the elephant, walked through the tracks of the jungle. He checked we had water, had we eaten, were we comfortable? And then he explained this beautiful, majestic animal, how they listen, how they see, and how they sense danger. I felt so at ease and trusted this 5 foot, barefoot, rucksack on his shoulder Nepalese guy implicitly. And ladies and gentlemen, what I saw was the heart of the jungle that day. I smelt the senses and the sense of the forest floor. And we were up high above amongst the treetops looking down, getting perspective if anything was coming our way to be prepared. What is the moral of this story? A true story. My jungle walk is your future workplace in a changing, disruptive environment. And I know how scary that is because I've managed many, many, many people, in fact, thousands of staff over my beautiful, grateful career. My guide, Demang, was the leader who failed me on a day he was meant to inspire me. I have not one photo of that day. And I was the student in the jungle who was full of fear, had no idea where I was going. No one was communicating to me. I was vulnerable, and I clearly did not have the tools to fix the problems if they came. I couldn't run up a tree. So this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, about the future of work is an unprecedented, widespread conversation. And Sean, the previous speaker, he spoke a little bit about it. But the irony is, with government associations and research organisations, they're all talking about this, but yet the future is still so unclear. So my intention is to take you on a journey where we can look at how can we be more prepared for the future skills and needs of our employees. How can we promote our beautiful industry more? An industry that fuels people's hearts and minds. And how do we prevent losing the employees that are coming to our industry and our workplaces by staying relevant and ahead of the curve, being up on that jungle? I need a clicker, which we didn't exchange. Okay, thank you. We can go 3 slides in, please, Matt. That would be great. That was a little bit of a technical, my problem. I was so excited to get up here and talk with you all. Well done, thank you. Great. And so, we got some visuals here. So the first, there is an image there, but I'll leave you with that. The first trend that is coming our way is what we call the second half of the chessboard. So this is, and I apologise there's no image, this is about the artificial intelligence and automation that is coming our way. This is the rapid technology speed, this is computing connectivity. But what it is how are we harmoniously living with robots as humans? How are we actually going to continue to do this in the workplace? So there is an example here, and I am moving the clicker, of IBM Watson, which is the first computer to cognitively, computer software, the first computer to pose answers to questions that are spoken to naturally. And then we have the driverless car, which of course is predicted to be on sale by 2020. And this is only 3 years away, as we know. And third and finally, we have our Japanese hotel called Henanana, which is the first hotel to serve by robots. So robot concierge, robot front of house, facial recognition. I must admit, when I was there this morning, how are we going with those slides? Yep. Excuse me, here we go. Okay. We always have to work with technology, and this is exactly my point. This is the Japanese Hana Hotel. This morning when I checked out, I thought about this. Yeah, I can see employees being replaced by robots in accommodation. What's interesting about this is that the industries that are most susceptible to be automated in Australia, in fact, 73% of our jobs is retailing, accommodation, food services, and manufacturing. So it's coming, and it will come through a phased way, but we do need to think about how we're going to live more harmoniously. The second trend is porous boundaries. This is about globalization. So individuals are interacting with international markets far more easily. The borders are removed like never before. And what we're finding is that there's places like Upwork, Kaggle, and Freelance. These are platforms that are allowing employees and employers to promote themselves and find markets they never could find before. Your employment models will look very differently if they don't already. Your staff, your core staff will shrink, freelancers and consultants will increase, and flexibility and agility is going to become something that is the norm. The third trend that is on our doorstep is the era of the entrepreneur. In my research, I've discovered that Australia is globally ranked third in the world as a country that has the most opportunity to be an entrepreneur. Why? We have access to funding, great tax culture, training and education. Basically, a spirit of entrepreneurship is something that we really enjoy here in Australia. This is impacting your workplace. The fourth trend, divergent demographics. All right, let me get a sense. Baby boomers in the room, 1946 born to 1964. Stand up. Boomers, how many of us are here? Diverse age in this room? Yes. Massive general statement here, but these guys, work is at the core of their life. They value work more than the other generations. Thank you. Gen Xers, my peeps, hello. Yes, I'm with you. Stand up. 1965 to 1980. You guys, you're awesome, by the way. We are the liberated generation, massive generalization statement, but we are also the ones that embraced internet fully. So, awesome to you. And everyone else stand up. Gen Next, Gen Xers, Gen Ys, Gen Zs, Millennials. Hello, you have massive generalization, lived in this rapid speed of technology. And, thank you, also expect your career to advance possibly a lot quicker than I certainly did. In this room alone, there is huge diversity in age, not to mention our multiculturalism here in Australia. But this is the statistic I find most interesting. The age of 65 years of age will be 19% in Australia by 2025. Now, for some of us, that might feel like a really long way away. But what that means is that our jobs shifts lengths and potentially our flexibility may need to change as we think about an ageing population. And certainly the millennials in the room are certainly thinking they'll be working till they're 70 at least. The fifth mega trend is what I call the rising bar. And these trends, I might add, came out of a recent CSIRO report. So this is not Jackie's logic, this is true and evidence. The rising bar is about our skills in the workplace. Now, the skills in the workplace, because we've got this artificial intelligence and we've got these robots, we're actually having to reskill ourselves. So our jobs are becoming more complex because of our robots and automation, because of technology. And what they're predicting is that the entry-level skill level for certain professions and occupations at university is much higher than it ever was. But the challenge here, which we know, is that there's a rising cost in the education in Australia. There's 1.8 million people currently with an education debt in this country, which equates to 30 billion. And the last trend, which is my most favourite, something very close to my heart, is the tangible intangibles. This, ladies and gentlemen, is about how do we actually be more human. The service sector in our country has an increasing ask for people who have social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and connect with people. And we are asking more of this in our employment circles than ever before, particularly when we're working with automation and computers. To combine that with the younger generation that are coming up, they're actually more connected, more technologically advanced. They've got entrepreneurial and creativity spirits that we've never seen before, and they demand more of your workplace. So, where are we going with all of this? Well, let's just get a little bit of perspective, all right? Sometimes we need to be out of something to see what's going on. So I like to think about that elephant that I was riding and looking around the forest floor and getting perspective, feeling safe, and knowing what danger might be coming my way. My invitation to you this morning, for the early adopters in the room, for the leaders in the room who are motivated to think differently, think radically. Like I'm up here presenting barefoot. So what? So human, how human of me to be doing that. But this is what radical humanization of the workplace is all about. How do we become more radically human in a changing, disruptive Nepalese jungle, your workplace? The definition of radical is not that radical. It actually means an overhaul of the existing regulatory framework. Well, if those 6 megatrends I just explained doesn't tell us what's coming our way and overhaul of our regulatory framework, then I don't know what is. Your employment market, your workplace is looking rapidly different now and very near future. So for us to be the elephant, to be more prepared for the future skills and needs of our employees, to promote this amazing industry that we're a part of, and promote your workplace, and to prevent losing the good ones and stay relevant ahead of the curve, I want to give you 3 personas that you might like to consider. The first is the explorer. Now this is about being more curious in your businesses. The explorer is the one with the roadmap that one and only desire is to simply seek. Seek and you shall find. So the first point about being an explorer as leaders in your business is you've got to measure your staff's mindsets. You've actually got to know what's going on. You've got to talk to them. To be more curious is understanding what's going on for them. How happy are they in the workplace? In employee engagement surveys, they're great. Gallup at the moment is saying 65% of employees are disengaged. Okay, great. What does it look like for a disengaged employee to work into the workplace? What are they actually carrying with them? I sat in front of a mentee that I'm currently working with last week, and the words that were coming out of his mouth was just disheartening. He said to me, Jackie, I do not feel valued. They're not using my strengths. I could be doing 10 times as much work, but for some reason, they don't trust me. And I know this guy, and he's a good guy. He's a good person. You want to keep him. But whatever's going on, politics, red tape, who knows, they don't want to know. They're not asking. They're not listening. So measuring our employees' mindsets is critical. The second point to being more curious is we need to ask more questions. A recent role I had in the corporate space, I learned this lesson really hard. Really hard. We had a huge software rollout that happened 3 months before I arrived into the business. And it was going to go fully nationally to member associations, to communities, to employees, and everyone been talking about it. And the management in the room was saying, it's going to roll out on October 1, come hell or high water. My KPIs, my bonus, my reputation at stake. The people on the ground that were rolling the system out were saying, it's not ready. We're going to have a disaster on our hands. That company today is still dealing with millions of dollars of loss, reputational damage, and trust. And the question that we talked about as an executive team and the CEO, we spoke about many times after this, why didn't we ask more questions? Why didn't we sit down with the people that were there in the trenches and ask them really the implications of rolling this out for our own interest? Huge lesson in business we learned. The third point I want to make about being more curious as an explorer is we need to be a little bit paranoid. You know, I often think, resting on your laurels is it's not actually a good thing. Challenging the status quo, getting up here barefoot, is me stretching myself. You've got to be a little bit paranoid because the next person's coming that might do it better than you. But in the context of employees, we've got to think about how they can also feel this sense of paranoia in belief of your brand and your industry. I love this example. Jordanian Airlines. There was an aviation legislation that came out that basically said you couldn't take tablets and laptops on certain flights over certain regions. So they had to alter their thinking, right? They had to, for the customer's sake, provide them with a tool to say, here's some cool things you can do on a 12-hour flight if you don't have some technical devices. But what I love about this is that this was a tool for the employees. Because when the customers are, crabby, and are complaining and giving it to them, they've got a tool there to make light of a situation. And do you think these guys were just a little bit paranoid? Amazon is the only biggest retail company in the world that doesn't own any retail stores. Uber is the biggest taxi company in the world that doesn't own any taxis. And Airbnb is the biggest hospitality business in the world that does not own any accommodation, any hotels. They had to be a little bit paranoid. They had to be curious. And so I love this quote, and whoever wrote it, I think they are fantastic. This is about turning over those stones. Poke it, prod it, turn it upside down. Be a little bit paranoid, because those of us that are curious about the future are the ones that will succeed. And our employees are the ones that will give us those unfiltered messages. But equally, they're great predictors of what's coming down the future. They know what's coming. They're touching it. They're speaking to the customers. So the second persona is the teacher, the guru in you. How do you be more inspiring with your staff? I get it. They can be really annoying, staff. Yes, you. And I've been one too. We all come in with our issues, but we still need to be more inspiring, because people no longer want information. We want relevance. We want meaning. We're meaning makers, us humans. And we want engagement. So to be more inspiring, I share with you this. For those of you that are currently looking for a new job and you're on Seek, you might be seeing this. But I have only seen this in the last couple of years. This is the TripAdvisor version of basically getting a job. Your employees need to be inspired before they're hired. That's the first point. They are rating you, ranking you now, before they've even considered joining the industry or joining your workplace. So inspire before you're hired. There's testimonials talking about what it's like to work at this place. They've completely sussed you out before they've walked in that interview room. Because that's what we do, right? The second point about to be more inspiring is we need to create a narrative. Sean spoke about that regarding customers, but why not do it with our staff? We need to tell them stories, and not tell them stories like porky pies and white lies. We actually need to tell them the story of your brand. Who was the founder? Where did it begin? Where are you going? What happened with this produce? Why is it not working? Test it, feel it. Stories, stories, stories. They will be your advocates, your staff. I call it the barbecue test. If I got a job in any of your workplaces tomorrow and I went to a barbecue on the weekend and someone said, hey, Jack, how's the new job? What's going on? I want to be able to tell them a little bit about the place I work within a few sentences, because I'm proud. And I want them to feel proud that I'm at a place that I feel proud to work at. But if you give me no stories, I can't talk about it. All I'm going to talk about is the boring guy in the tea room, or what I don't get with my employee benefits, or whatever it is. Give me the narrative. This is an example of a campaign that you can run internally. It's called Nudge. It's quite new and it's been piloted across various sectors. But this is the kind of stuff, if you've got a geographical issue and you've got staff spread out across the place, you can create a campaign just like marketers would internally for your staff, promoting a message you want to push for the day, a product you want to push for the day, maybe a customer service mantra you want to push for the day, a reward and recognition comment, whatever. Talk to them, because yes, the younger generation are on their devices for 10 hours a day, but their preference of communication is still face-to-face. So we've got to find ways to gather and speak, but also use technology to push out really important messages, this harmonious of robots and humans living together. And the third point around being more inspiring is, I know this, what got you here won't get you there. We need to reskill, to reinvent ourselves. And what I mean by that is, we're going to have to work with robots, machines, who knows what in the future, older people, younger people, diverse cultures, and we're going to need to have different skills than we currently have, and our employees are going to need them as well. So what are you training them? How are you educating them? And what are you actually investing in with your employees that's relevant to now and the future? These are the skills for the future. This is what makes us humans unique. Creativity, problem solving, advanced reasoning, complex judgment, social interaction, and EI. This is what makes us unique. This is what's going to stop robots taking over us. So how are we engaging our staff on these skills? How are we training our staff on these skills? To reskill, to reinvent, my mother is 65 years of age. For her first 50 years of her career, she was a hairdresser. By 45, her body was completely packed in. She had RSI wrists, her shoulder had gone, everything was, pretty bad. She knew she had at least another 15 years of work ahead of her. She needs to work. So she reskilled herself. She went and got an advanced Pilates instructor course. She's a yoga teacher and she's learned Tai Chi. And now she goes into retired places, at retired aged care places, and works with the elderly, because let's face it, she did blue rinses with them in the hair salon, so she knows what she's doing. And she works with the elderly and she helps them find balance to prevent them from slipping and falling. That's a really important skill for the elderly in the future. But she's had to reskill herself, reinvent herself at 50. This is what I'm talking about. And inspiration at the end of the day simply means to mentally stimulate people to feel or do something. And Maya Angelou, she says it beautifully. People may not remember what you said or what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. The teacher in you. And the third persona I invite you to embody, and give these people some love, is the maker. This is, how do you be more creative? Creativity, I don't know about you guys, but when I need to be creative, I need to be well. I need to feel well. And so in our employees' case, why would we expect that any different? If we're asking them to produce, to create, we need them to be full of well-being, not poor health. So the first point I want to make about being a maker, to be more creative, is radical well-being in the workplace. There is a prediction that employee engagement will be replaced by employee well-being in the future as a HR metric. And we'll no longer be talking about engagement, we're talking about well-being. And why is this the case? Well, time is precious. The World Health Organization says that 58% of the world's population spend a third of their adult life at work. So the quality of life at work really matters to me. But I don't mean Fitbit challenges, yoga at lunchtime, executive health checks and fruit bowls in the staff room. In fact, radical well-being, defined by Deepak Chopra recently, says it's about purpose, your social connection, your financial health, your physical health, and your community health. When I worked at Tennis Australia recently, you would think that a company like Tennis Australia has some pretty good social connections, and it's a sport. Yeah, it is. But we needed to connect further with the grassroots. So what we did was we created a program called a Pay It Forward, and I was given the task of finding out what our employees actually care about. Now, this Pay It Forward program was really simple. Staff had to do a video online and that to tell us, as a sort of a pitch, like a Shark Tank pitch, what they would do with $1,000 and how they'd make the world a better place. And we chose 10 and we gave them a grant, and those stories are now being followed, and we're learning about the culture in Tennis Australia, and they're learning about what those people care about to take that off into the grassroots and communities, because your staff will be the greatest advocates of any social impact or social contribution than the customers. So start there. I took this slide because I think it is a little bit about my second point here, to be more creative, is to blow your own horn. Tell people how great this industry is. Why did you get into it? Our employee value proposition is equally as important as the customer value proposition. We need to mirror this. So the money, the time, the investment, the brand companies we engage to tell a story to our customers, how much effort are we putting into our internal brand management, our internal campaign? This is how we attract the good ones and prevent losing the bad ones. So blow your own horn. Tell us the story and tell us how great it is. But of course, from Mercer, I attribute them with this model. Compensations, paychecks, and benefits, that's at the bottom of the employee value proposition. What people want is affinity, pride, and purpose. I want to be proud of where I work and what I do. And I want to create and have a voice in my workplace to create. The last point around being more creative is we need to experiment a little. I'm hearing a lot at the moment about companies that are doing this rapid prototyping. They're getting stuff out there really quickly. You know, experiment, experiment, experiment. And again, I challenge you in this room to say, use the stuff. If you're going to roll out an app, if you're going to try a new product, if you're going to do anything new, grab the cohort, the people that are in your workforce, and ask them to give you feedback, unfiltered feedback. Test, try and break it, try and, work out what this is all about. Because once we launch it, they're going to be your advocates. They're going to be the ones that shout about these products from the rooftops. So we've got to experiment a little and create that innovation culture amongst our businesses. So, radical humanisation of the workplace. It's just about human connection. It's about amplifying our human qualities. It's just about being a nice human too, as a boss or an employee. We're all the same. So being more curious as the explorer, measure the mindset, ask more questions, but really ask questions to listen, and staying a little bit paranoid. The teacher, to be more inspiring. So inspire before you hire, because they're watching, and make sure you create the narrative for the barbecue test. And of course, reskill to reinvent like my mum has. And then thirdly, be more creative as the makers of the industry. Radical well-being, look after your people, both their mind, their emotional well-being, their physical well-being, and their spiritual well-being. Mirror your value proposition with your customers, and finally, experiment a little. You know, entrepreneurs, we're good at experimenting. You know why? Because we're good at failing. If I experiment 6 times and 3 of them fail, I'm okay with that. Failing's good, it's growth, it's learning. But you've got to experiment to test the market, and your staff are the great guinea pigs. So, we have come to this time where we are seeing something for the first time. We're seeing forces in the workplace, in our employment models. Radical change is being required of our organisations. And it's a time that we've seen never like before. The difference is, someone explained to me once that where we are right now with AI and automation is where we were when the internet really took off 20 years ago. But the difference is that it's going to take a third of the time to get there. So it's speed that we're dealing with. And my invitation to you is to remember the reason why we have staff in the first place. And it's the same reason we have customers. We need what you sell, what you produce. But if we can try and mirror that value proposition of customer and employee, then maybe treating them the same, we might get more from them, which will then in turn, you will get more from your customers. I believe HR is the new marketing function of businesses. And we're all in HR if we've got people in our teams. Our staff and our employees are equally forcing change in our businesses, and it's time for us to think more like humans. Radical humanisation of the workplace. So if all of that's been a bit overwhelming and you're going, yeah, good on you, Jack, where do I start? Start here. Get your people into a room. Ask them some questions, tell them some stories, treat them like the customer, and the rest will follow. Thank you.